Okay,
Right.
we are now live.
All right, get ready. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Human Resources Administration Appointment Committee. Mr. Hammond, please note that Mr. Zukel is in attendance, Ms. Appa, Ms. Moda is absent. And also present is Mr. McLean and Mr. Ruggs.
And Mr. Green.
Oh, and Mr. Green.
They're all here.
And Mr. Green. He said something about happy hour, I thought he was gone. I'm sorry. So the first thing on the agenda we have is Bill 36.
Bill 36 amends Bill 36 amends the equipment fund budget and the general fund budget to provide for transfer between funds in the amount of $220,000 for changes to the existing Microsoft Enterprise Agreement as it relates to the malware situation.
All right, Mr. Einer, you're here to explain this to us.
Sure.
You're on.
So, yeah. No, I didn't submit this. This is a PowerPoint that I sat down with the mayor, managing director, and the finance director, and basically said, here's what we need to do as far as getting the proper products licensed. We have Microsoft Consulting here. As you well know, you approved that months ago at this point. And we are at the stage we want to roll this stuff out, and we need to have the proper licensing in alignment because a lot of the systems that we had were old. The licensing models, now that we're upgrading things, it's changing the licensing models because the terms of the licensing as they were in maybe 2012 when we bought certain products are now kind of under new rules because they're going to be Windows 2016 in most cases. And that goes across 100 systems or so that we have and on the back end in the servers. So it's basically causing us to open up our contract with Microsoft and the opportunity to renegotiate the licensing. Of course, they proposed a package that just upgrade to level 5, it's called. We had a whole bunch of quotes that I brought to you guys. And I pared it down to just what we need. And I do have that here if you want me to sort of skip through that stuff.
Yeah.
So email cloud protection, for instance, this first one on the list here. Today we filter spam, but we don't filter for the bad stuff that came through the door to infect this place because we don't have a license for it. So even though we spent a lot of money to date since February hardening the inside of this place, it can still come through the door. Just as if you could walk on tacks on the floor. You can still get pricked, but if you have a tetanus shot, you're not going to get sick. So we're effectively have our tetanus shot now, but ideally we need a pair of shoes to walk safely, and at least with regard to the email system. Maybe it's a bad analogy, but
That's a good one. I got that. It's better than the other stuff.
so email protection, the some of these techie terms, but Azure Active Directory plan too. Maybe my tech person over here might have something to say about it. But basically, it's a higher license level that protects our identities, as in your network logins. When people sign into our Office 365 cloud services, it collects a lot more log data about what those accounts are doing. Your account, my account, every account, but most importantly, the privileged accounts that are set up now to manage all the secure aspects of this organization's environment. So we're going to have what they call telemetry to help us track down threats. Because the fact is, they will still get in the door. They just will not spread the way they spread 6 months ago. So we need those tools. and that's part of this package. Endpoint protection is actually your sort of typical antivirus that sits on all the Windows devices. We have over 750 Windows computers here. We had the standard antivirus protection before, but no intelligence about it. So I want to upgrade the license level so that when a computer is infected, it can actually send that file up to the Microsoft Cloud and analyze it sort of in real time. It feeds into a whole security dashboard that we are getting access to as part of this license upgrade. And that's that feature. It gives you more intelligence about what it tried to do. It'll show you down to the level of they clicked this attachment in Outlook and it took the calculator process in Windows and then tried to reach out to an internet site or something. But basically you get a lot of intelligence about what hackers are doing so that threats pretty much get mitigated as fast as possible today.
I think the analogy would be, it's, at one level you know you're sick, but you don't know why. Now at this level, you know exactly what the illness is, if you want to use a very generalized analogy.
Yeah, so in other words, if we had something like this, a year or two ago, we may not have had this virus. It's like having a flu shot. You may get the flu anyway, but you're much more protected.
Yes, you will be more protected, absolutely. I mean, you're more protected with what the consulting arm is doing, but we are just not licensed at the level that is the security suite stuff, basically.
I think that's a great analogy, because you're less likely to get the flu if you had the flu shot. Now, this last year was the exception, but what it's explained to me, but from what I've read in my doctor said, even if you do, it'll be a milder case. So it's not going to completely necessarily prevent it, but it may reduce the consequences.
Right. Thank you. Can I open this up to Mr. Zuppel? Do you have any questions?
Yes, thanks. What risk does Microsoft take with this? You know, this is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. In other words, are they taking any responsibility if a virus would get through?
No, these are tools for us to
I
manage.
understand that, but what I'm saying is if a virus gets through, are we gonna be at another $1 million thing that, 6 months down the road again, like we just were?
No, the consulting service work that's being done to harden this place, put the correct policies and things in place that's already been done, or, not 100% complete yet. That's what's going to protect you from that. And, they said nobody's going to accept 100% responsibility or give you any kind of guarantees. But these are the tools we need
Yeah.
to be able to do that work. And we don't even have those tools today.
Anything from anybody out there in the dais? Mr. McLean.
So this 220,000 is in addition to the 900 and some thousand?
Yes.
So we're talking over $1 million and we have absolutely no guarantees on anything.
Well, this is not services, Councilman, this is licenses.
But you're telling us we need this to help be more secure
Yes.
in the future.
Yes.
So it's basically for the same issue.
Yes, the world's evolving.
I understand that.
Absolutely more sophisticated.
I understand that. And I've had a lot of people tell me that it shouldn't have cost us $1 million to get this fixed. But this is, my question was, this is an addition to the 900 some thousand that council has already approved. Okay, thank you.
It is, because we are opening up our license contract and amending it so that we can upgrade. Normally, you can't even upgrade until your contract renews, which doesn't renew until 2019.
Well, that's next year.
Right, but we have consulting services on site now.
We've got it now.
And while we have these consultants working on our premises, now's the time to do this work.
Yeah, because if you think about it from this, you send the contractor home after they do a certain amount of work, and you're gonna bring the same ones back in to do it. There's another startup cost. They travel from the West Coast in a lot of cases, so if you have them on site, you're gonna get a better price and get it done all at one time. And you don't open up a period of time in between implementing better tools to protect you, where you're now still vulnerable.
Okay, then that,
Mr. Robinson?
I know we're down, I know we're down the road with Microsoft now, but I mean, did we have to choose Microsoft? Wasn't there any other security company, any other company that could, rectify this malware?
I'm sure there's other companies out there that could have done this work, absolutely. Everybody's gonna have, every company out there is gonna have an opinion and say that they could have done it. We are constrained by contractual vehicles, which is why we went to Microsoft Group, because in the midst of our outbreak, we didn't have time to do a competitive bid, and we had no other vendors in place.
Well, I was gonna say, if it was contractual, then we shouldn't have had to pay $1 million to get it fixed if we had a contract with them. So, but like you said, we didn't have time to go out and get bids.
Yeah, that's
More.
what I mean. We had an existing contract, we had to leverage that. We didn't have time to go, hire FireEye or one of the other, companies that goes out there and mitigates malware.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Robinson?
Thank you very much, Ms. Alpha. Why didn't we have this license in the first place?
Why don't we have it? Because it costs $200,000 more a year.
Okay, so this was a decision made because of the price of it. I assume this was a decision made above your pay grade previously, Mr. Liber.
Well, I could assume a lot of things were shot down, yes.
Okay.
To the point that after you ask so many times,
No, and I-
ask, I mean, how do you ever know if you're secure enough?
Of course.
This PowerPoint that I did for the mayor and everybody, it starts out, when I took this job 12 years ago, this place didn't even have legal licenses.
Right.
We were illegal.
Right.
So I got us legal, which stepped into a certain amount of money. We didn't even have a contract with Microsoft or any kind of enterprise agreement or any support. So, what we were spending, you could look at this year, we spend 220 or something like that in the detailed budget. And that's what we were holding at, because it's actually the largest spend with any vendor. They are our biggest IT vendor. Save, things like camera system and some of these other things that cost a lot of money.
Okay. Why was this not included when the administration came to us for the $900,000 3 months ago?
I don't think we understood the license changes that needed to happen. I mean, Microsoft didn't understand our environment at that time either to make any recommendations.
Okay.
I also wanted some time to study it myself, because just because I'm buying endpoint protection through my Microsoft contract right now, as Roger said, I could go out and shop for other vendors and get virus protection over here, get firewall stuff over here, but I actually think that's part of our problem here, is that we piecemealed everything for the last decade and got a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit, and every vendor had a different style of how they implemented things. The result is a lot of complex configuration across this environment. It made it impossible for my small staff to manage ultimately, and that's kind of what caused us to fail.
And if I might, having not been here at the time, I'm only speaking, maybe conjecturing on what occurred at the time. You were in an emergency situation, so the first thing that IT would be worried about is making sure we keep the system up and running, keep it from spreading further. So this is more of an afterthought than it would have been. If you're in a triage situation, you want the patient to survive. Okay, now that the patient is getting healthy, now we can start to look at their future health. And I think maybe that's an analogy that I would use for this. You're adding security on. You've got through the bad period, you've got it squared away, and now you want to protect for the future.
No, and I understand, I understand what you're saying, Mr. McMahon. I just look at, I think it's a fair question when we're looking at this is 25 to 30% of the cost additional. So I think it's fair to ask why it wasn't brought forward. And Mr. Liber gave a reasonable answer, but that's why I asked that. This is $220,000. So if our contract is up in 2019 with Microsoft, I assume that's the end of 2019 that it's up?
August 31st.
August 31st. So this would be a little more than a year. is this $220,000 just for this calendar year, for the remaining part of the contract?
Yes.
Well, there's two different questions. Is it for the remaining part of the contract, August 31st of next year, or is it just until December 31st of this year, the 220,000?
This money that we're asking to take out of the unappropriated balance, I believe is where finance decided, is to be combined with what we've already budgeted this year. So our total licensing cost is gonna go from 232 to 455.
So what I'm saying is, next year for your budget, we are now gonna be looking at a $220,000 increase per year of this contract. So theoretically, if this was year one of the contract, and it's a 3-year contract, we'd be looking at $640,000.
Correct.
Sorry, 660, excuse me. So, I guess my other question here is, and you sort of answered it, Mr. Liebert, but I'm a little concerned with this. Why was this not bid? I mean, I understand why the Microsoft contract wasn't bid when we were in the throes of the emergency, but why was this not put out to a competitive bid?
All of these products, because you probably have to engage a number of different vendors and come up with a way that you're gonna make them all work together to give a holistic security, program to this organization. And Microsoft is on the state contract.
Is there no one else on the state contract at all that provides these services, even if it's public? Or is Microsoft the only one on the CoStars?
No, of course not.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is, I understand why this would become easier to not bid this, but the problem is there's a lot of contracts in the city that would become easy if we didn't bid them. And I'm a little concerned that we didn't put this contract out to bid, if for no other reason than to just see. If what you're saying is true and it would be too difficult to piecemeal everything together, well, then that is reasonable. We go with this even though it's more expensive because it's reasonable. But to not have that information, it kind of creates a situation in which some of our detractors might go, oh, you're just giving away a $220,000 no-bid contract. And I'm concerned that we're gonna just feed the beast if we do that, if we don't actually have the bid documents to show that that would not be a feasible solution.
Well, there's always limited time, right?
Mhm.
If I was to take, the next 2-3 months to figure out what this place should look like from this, first of all, I don't think I'm the security professional to do that. I'd probably come back and say, let's hire a security consultant to tell us what licenses we should get.
Okay.
So now we're into a contractor to give us some advice on what security products we should pick. And then bid out endpoint protection, bid out a security suite so we get the telemetry stuff that I'm talking about. Some third party to do privileged account management. There's a lot in here that, we didn't say necessarily. If I went down the list, but like a multi-factor authentication solution that I helped you set up on your phone so you have to authenticate with your phone and not just your password. It's just plain simpler and less complex to get that through Microsoft than to try to ratchet on a third-party multi-factor solution while I have Microsoft people here fixing all that stuff.
And I understand what you're saying, but you're also asking us to take $220,000 from the unencumbered balance at a time in which we don't have a lot left in the unencumbered balance, especially when you remove the $5 million from the lockbox. We're looking at $2 to $3 million. We're now taking $220 for this, and you're telling us that it's going to be an additional $220,000 next year and potentially every year moving forward. When we're looking at a large deficit, not as large as we thankfully thought it would be, but a rather large one, not having the due diligence done to make sure that we are doing the best thing. And Ms. Liebert, I am not at all questioning your expertise in terms of product and what's easiest for your department. I'm just trying to say that we need to have the information to back those things up so that to the public at large, to the controller's office, and to anyone else, we can say, hey, we did our due diligence and we looked into this, but it would have ended up being more strain on our staff, more strain on our resources, so we went with the easier solution. I understand not doing that when you're in the throes of, oh my God, we have to fix the problem and it's in the middle of us now. But when we're looking at something where we're not at that, because as Mr. McLean said, you're basically telling us that we could get this and still run into a problem where it doesn't fix the problem. This isn't gonna provide 100% protection because there is no such thing as 100% protection. So I guess the question I have is, why didn't we bid out to a security consultant when this happened, independent of Microsoft, to come in and say, okay, here's everything you have to fix, this is ridiculous? Because Microsoft is gonna wanna sell us Microsoft products, there's no question on that one. So why didn't the administration, and obviously that's not something Mr. McMahon can answer, and it wasn't your call, I'm assuming, why didn't we look to bring someone in at the same time to work with you, work with Microsoft, and identify, guys, here are your problems?
At the time all this happened, we didn't have a managing director for me to speak to,
Okay.
and my boss was on trial across the street.
And that's why I said, I didn't think that this was your issue.
So I did the best I could in the circumstances.
No, and I think you and your staff did a really good job in trying to fix this, but I guess my question would be, instead of spending this 220 right now on what is essentially a no-bid contract, would it not perhaps be better to hire an independent third-party consultant separate from Microsoft, who's not trying to sell us a product per se, but is literally just gonna come in and make recommendations and say, you need this type of system, you need that type of system? And that's just a question.
One of the slides I skipped over here, I did, we have a third-party consultant, which is Gartner.
Okay.
You could look up, Gartner is a professional consulting firm. It's
Okay.
global reach. I went through all these research documents basically with the Gartner analyst.
Okay.
I have them enumerated here if you wanted to look at them.
That'd be great,
Which
thank you.
is, how to navigate through Microsoft's cloud and on-premise licensing, because I am changing our license model. Your renewal options, the cybersecurity document, and I reviewed the plan ultimately.
Okay.
Is what I want you
Well,
to
I'm a
know.
little confused, and if we have a consultant, why did you just say that we would need to hire a third-party consultant, since you're not a security expert, if we already have one?
Well,
I'm a little confused by that.
Because we.
Is the work done? Or are they still on board?
They're on board.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean you like their opinion either.
No,
So.
it's not a matter of liking or not liking the opinion. This is $220,000 on top of $947,000. So we want to make sure that we're doing this in the best way. And as you pointed out, your previous boss is going to be spending quite a lot of time behind bars for contracts. So we also need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence there. So that's why we ask all these questions, me specifically. So the Gartner consultant, they recommended going with Microsoft as opposed to doing anything else?
They agreed with my plan.
Okay.
We talked about the pros and cons of, I spoke to an endpoint person that they'll tell you, I think it was Carbon Black, I think was the name of the product. That's the best
Never
endpoint
heard
protection
of it.
in the world.
Okay.
Never heard of it,
Never heard of that one?
and I've been doing this for 30 years.
Okay.
Well-
So, basically, they said Microsoft was number 2 at this point.
Okay.
Because they take a lot of calls.
Right.
And, so maybe I got it wrong, whoever's number 1, but, that's sort of what's the philosophy of our organization and how we make technology investments. I talked about it years ago here. How involved does city council want to be? How much do you trust me to make the decisions? I'm not making them in a black box. I do, that's why we have a Gartner contract.
Nor do I think that you are, and as I said, I think you and your staff did a really good job trying to bring all this back together. But there's a due diligence factor here that we're responsible for to all the citizens above and beyond what everyone is. We have an extra set of responsibility because we're elected officials, so we have to do our due diligence on these things.
Yeah, no, I agree with your comments on how the optics look with no bid and all that. And, we're free to drop these products at the end of our, term again, if that's what we want to do and say, we're going to go buy that other third-party product. But
Okay.
I would like to get it in place now because at this point, we have nothing.
Okay, and then my last question is, since we have the contract up next year with Microsoft, just how would we go through that process? I assume that there are certain products with Microsoft that we have to use, so we would need to have some relationship with them, but would we need to have the same relationship with them we currently do? So would we need to buy every service from them we currently are? Or if we found a better product at a better price and you were comfortable with it, would we be looking at sort of piecemealing that together? I know you said you don't like doing that, but if you found something that, I'm just asking hypothetically, if you found something you were comfortable with, would you go down that road? Or by doing this, along with everything else we've done, have we pretty much locked ourselves to Microsoft so that they can come back to us with practically any amount of money that they want to charge us, and we sort of have to go with them?
It's a little of both. I mean, the vendor lock-in is a real problem, absolutely. But, I mean, I said this to Joe before, I mean, who else are you gonna get to give you Windows PCs?
Well, and that was my statement, and there
They
are
are
certain
monopolies.
things we have to do with them.
So,
But I'm sure that there are aspects of this, even this 220 we're talking about, where we could theoretically go to another vendor for some of those aspects. So what I'm saying is, are we now just locked into having to use Microsoft, or do we have the ability that if we choose to no longer use them for certain things, that we can?
you can, absolutely you can.
Thank you
And
very
these
much.
are à la carte, instead of, I'm not buying a suite of products, like I said, they tried to bundle it.
Right,
I've carved it into, no, I just want this piece, I want this piece, I want this piece.
right.
Got the individual numbers. And yeah, if we want to choose to replace it, we can.
Okay, and when would this start? If we approve, this is approved at the next council meeting, when would the contract start?
Well, there's a Microsoft account exec on their end, doing the same thing I'm doing with their licensing desk, I guess, which is proposing, you know, I've given them a verbal, based on Joe and the mayor and finance commitment that this is the direction we want to take, so they've taken that to their people, and, you know, I think about a month.
Okay, is there a chance that they could come back to us and say, nah, we want to charge you more money?
No, no, and I've asked for a new.
When you just said that about taking it, a proposal to them, I wanted to make sure that they couldn't.
I've actually asked to give me a new 3-year agreement, so the price is fixed for the next 3 years.
And that, I'm glad you, is this number prorated, or is this basically we're paying as if we would have gotten it January 1?
Yeah, I think this is prorated.
So then
It's either
theoretically it could
11
be-
months, or it's 12 months. Well, I guess it would be 12 or 13, I'm sorry, because we got this quote in June, so it's probably August, which would be, because I told you the new contract, or the
Well,
third
I'm
year
now
of the
confused, because I
contract.
thought you said that this is just for calendar year 18, and in
It's not a
calendar.
calendar year, it's a September 1st to August 31st.
Okay, is
So year
the,
3,
all right, so the impression that I had, and I think some of us others did, was that this $220,000 would be added to the Microsoft budget line item for 2019 at an additional 220 for 19. This was only for 18. So what you're saying is this is for the remainder of the contract through August 31st. So this will cover the rest of 18 and all of the contract in 19, existing contract.
and it covers the August of 19, so I would.
Right, that's why I said the existing contract to the end of August of 19.
So he'll have to budget
Right.
prorated on the first 9 months.
But I-
Right, I just want to make sure that we're not talking about one calendar budget year, we're talking about 11 months of your contract year.
Yes.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Actually, this will be actually, yeah, 13 years.
Yeah, 13 years,
Sorry,
yeah,
it's
so-
another 1 year, right.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Haffner.
Mr. Brady?
I just have a few questions, and I thank Mr. Robinson for asking some of the questions that I had, so that speeds it up a lot more. But I am extremely uncomfortable with now having an identified consultant to help us out through this process. And I know you talked about Gardner consultant. Is that, I mean, how did that come about? I mean, like, I don't remember approving anything from Gardner Consulting. Is that something that you chose somebody, or was it recommended by somebody? Was it done by the mayor? Where did the money come from to hire that consultant?
We've had Gartner on board as a consultant for 5 to 6 years at this point, and they're on the state contract, because they consult with mostly every state agency and, you know, local governments.
I don't remember, I don't know if you guys do, but I don't remember talking about Gardner Consulting.
I don't think we talked about it. As I said, it's not a contract that came here because it's a state contract. It's a state contract service. We bought off the state contract.
And where did the money come from to pay for this? Like, it's not part of your budget, annual budget?
Contract services budget, it's in the detail sheet, been there for years.
I don't remember anybody bringing it up to us. It might be in the detail sheets, but you know, those detail sheets are not always, you know, they fill, yeah, exactly, they filled up with a lot of things, but anyway, you got them. Now, and I'm happy that you have a consultant. The problem is if you have it for 5 years and they're consulting you on the subject of keeping us safe, what happened? Why?
That's not just what they consult on whatever we ask them to consult us on. There's about 3,200 consultant resources and research documents that I'm able to tap into that supports, you know, technical projects, policy things, you know, a variety.
They don't consult us on, hey, you can't get hacked if you don't do this. You can't get hacked if you don't do this. I mean, or you need this, because now they're consulting us for $220,000 a year. That is new. That's a new charge that we're gonna have to, you know, our taxpayer are gonna have to pay. $220,000 is a lot of money in one shot. Every year from here on, and we don't know where the money gonna come from. I mean, that's not allocated. I mean, I'm looking now for the little guys here, and financially little guy, not stature, but but what I'm getting to is, I think, and you know, I don't, like Mr. Robinson said, I don't expect it to be the, you know, the carry all burden in regards to IT, but you need some support, and I agree with that. I think we should get somebody who knows, you know, basically all the ins and outs about what we're doing, you know, outside from Microsoft, because I do agree with Mr. Robinson. Microsoft is gonna try to sell us whatever they can. We don't even know if that's a fair price.
I do.
You think?
I ran it through Gartner, and those are
And
the
he's-
fair
and they say
prices,
that-
and that's what the lowest government price is. And that's why we
So
have
you're
that.
saying that's a state government price? Or is it a Microsoft
Yes,
price?
it's the same price that everybody that purchases under the, so we're purchasing the Microsoft licenses through the, I don't want to say, it's kind of like the state contract as well, because Microsoft doesn't sell their licenses direct. They sell them through a reseller in each state. So the state handles that, and that is now CDWG, if you've heard of that company. So CDWG is the reseller of Microsoft products and services, or maybe just licenses. Maybe I should just say products, because our consulting is direct with them.
So, let me ask you, because I'm a little confused on this. When you say licensing, are you talking about software and we're getting the license to use it, or are you saying we're getting a license, so what does the license do, or is it the software that we buy?
When I say license, it's a license for software and services.
And services,
So
okay.
email, you may have thought of it as a product. And
I'm thinking of it
you
like
get there.
McAfee, for example, so everybody knows it, okay? So we have a license to use McAfee, costs $50 a year, or whatever it is, I don't know. But that kind of thing is what we're talking about, right? Well, this is in a bigger scale.
It's one of the things in this, yes.
Okay, so
Windows
there's,
Defender instead of McAfee, but
so it's a whole bunch of them that would target, let me give you an example, it may be better for me to explain it this way. But the company that the agency that I work for, okay, we have an IT director. He takes care of things, he runs it through the executive director, which in essence would be, I guess, Mr. McMahon and the mayor. And then it goes to the commissioners for approval, okay, which would be like council. Now, in that way, whenever there is, I mean, they try to hack us all the time, at least once a month, probably more than once that I know. And the IT director would send an email and say, look, if you get these kind of things, you know, these kind of messages, don't open it, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know if that's what the consulting Gardner is gonna do,
they are not, no.
or you do these, or,
Actually, the new licensing suite is gonna actually have a anti-phishing campaign engine, or it's one of the features
Mhm.
of the licensed service.
And shop around to see if there is a better or a less expensive company or consulting company that can help us out? Because Mr. Robinson said,
Sure. I
you
mean,
know,
what do you want to switch out, though, is the real question. We're talking, the point piece, if we really went down through all the features that are part of Office, so we already have Office 365, and we're not getting rid of it. We're talking about stepping up from a level 3 to, and not even to all the way to level 5. We're buying some of the level 5 features, which is the advanced security and the privileged account telemetry, multi-factor authentication. As I said, you can get a company, not just one company, it's a couple companies. And that's why I said, to get it done in the time that everybody wants me to accomplish this work. But absolutely, there's an opportunity. If we want to.
efficient that you can, not necessarily the quickness as much, but to be efficient, I think is what the issue is. Because we've been dealing with this for several months now, and we're spending, now it's gonna be over $1 million, well, $1,200,000, almost. And that's a lot of money. And, we don't know if it's even gonna, there's no guarantee. That's what the Microsoft guy told us last, when we met. There isn't guarantee that it's gonna be hacked and we're gonna have to spend another $1 million next year.
Well, I can guarantee you, if something gets in the door again, we won't have any visibility to track it down on our own without these tools.
Oh, without these tools, okay.
So could I take $220,000 and go shopping for some other solutions and some tools? We could, but we'd be giving up a lot and we'd be adding a lot of complexity.
No, I'm not saying you're already committed.
Scale of the Microsoft consultants that are already here.
It sounds like you're committed to this. You're coming over for the approval right now, which I understand. I think the issue is that we need to make sure that, that we have the best product at the least price, and that's our responsibility. Because quite frankly, everybody I talk to about this says the same thing that they said to me, President McLean. You guys spend way too much money. And I can explain it because I don't know. We haven't been, the meeting that we had with you when the previous mayor wasn't really a meeting that we got information. We just said, we were told it got hacked, there's a malware, and we gotta spend $1 million almost. That's all. And how can we run a $105 million agency, let's say, with taxpayers' money without information? We need more information. Because people are saying to me, this is too expensive, you guys, you spend too much money, and I can't explain it. I don't know if you guys can, but I can't. Because I don't,
It's absolutely difficult to explain. I've been trying to explain it to my colleagues for the last 6 months as well. But I was saying to Joe recently, I don't know if my story about, you think what we've done here in 12 years, we have put system in after system in after system in. And now, that 12 years worth of work, since I've been in this role for 12 years, we have to rebuild it all. And some of it was built with traffic consultants that put in that system to manage the adaptive traffic system. I don't have money to go budget and get help with that traffic system. I still don't, we're gonna get some support from that vendor, but I have to go to every vendor, and some of them are gonna want money to rebuild these systems as well. Because that's the way we did business here. They would ship us a server, we would plug it in, no questions asked. That's not very secure either.
No.
But that's what I was told to do, so that's what I do.
See, it's a new era, okay? I don't want, I know that it's different. I mean, you had a bad position where you were before, but it's a new era and we need to start doing things differently, and I understand that. But we need to have some kind of understanding that where is the money gonna be spent, how much is gonna be spent every year, and what is it gonna do? And we're spending money, but we don't have any assurance of what it's gonna do, except for what you just said. And it sounds like, you know, according to the guy, to you and the gentleman that represented Microsoft when he came over, it could happen tomorrow again. And that's uncomfortable for me.
It's not gonna happen the same way it happened at all. I give you my word on that one, for what that's worth. But it's not gonna happen the way it happened. I really don't think it's gonna happen.
Right?
Probably
Well,
by the
frankly, I don't
end
even
of
know,
the
I don't even know the way it happened.
I know you don't.
You never explained to us, so I can, you know, I can think, wait, it's not gonna happen. I heard, you know, quite frankly, I heard it might have been something from inside. So, that's another issue.
You know, and Roger could probably, you know, give you more of the physical analogy, but if somebody wants to get onto your property, and we'll use that analogy for a computer system, they're eventually going to get on your property. It's a matter, especially depending on their skill set, it's a matter of slowing them down and stopping them so that you have somebody there ready to apprehend them. And if you think of that physical analogy, I put a fence here, I put sensors in between, I have a second fence, now I have a wall, okay? That's the physical analogy to what I think Matt is saying about the software that they're putting in place is to put barrier after barrier in place of somebody trying to enter a system that you and I can't see and feel, that they know what they're doing in it. And I think that's what Matt's trying to tell you, what the software's for.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Okay.
Last question. Are we like a cloud-based type of system where people can access from anywhere? And also, is there like, well, something comparable to the cloud that is, are we holding our information in case something happens, we can always extract that information or retract that information?
First question, we are a hybrid organization in that we have some systems, most systems on premise, but we have Office 365 and we do have a presence in the cloud. Our website runs from the cloud. You know, we have some databases up in the cloud for some mobile apps that some of the mobile staff use, field workers and things like that. You know, and part of this security suite gives me visibility across that too, that I don't have today. So the answer is yes, we're a hybrid and we do use the cloud.
Can you use another system where you have things stored? In case something happens, we can always retract it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry.
Any other questions from the panel here? Or any questions from the public?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw? State your name and address, please.
Hello, Louis Xu, 814 Walnut Street now. There's a lot I could cover here with this. I've been involved with computer programming, computer security for almost 30 years. I don't know the specifics of what he's proposing with this extra $200,000, but I can tell you, I've worked with Microsoft myself in several instances over the years. And pretty much, you're gonna have to end up paying that until you decide to move away from Microsoft. There are cities out there right now, I can prepare a detailed report down the road if you like, but there are cities out there that are moving away from Microsoft and installing either Linux or BSD-based computer systems on all the computers, the workstations, the servers, and the total cost of ownership for those computing systems that use free and open source software is a whole lot cheaper than Microsoft. With Microsoft, you gotta pay. You're gonna be locked into that. You're using Microsoft products, Office 365, you're working with Microsoft Cloud. The tools that they're going to license work in their cloud environment uniquely. The people behind Microsoft are some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. Mark Russinovich, for example, is a very famous Microsoft developer. He's invented tools to a point where Microsoft bought his company out 20 years ago. So they've got people like that behind them. They will help to protect your data as long as it's on Microsoft's products and on Microsoft servers. But for now, like I said, the best suggestion I can make would be to pay this, but begin planning to move away from Microsoft in the long term of things.
You think they're the best? Are they the best?
They are the best. They are Microsoft. They are proprietary. They will protect their own. And they charge more money for that than any other company on the planet Earth, I promise you. They will charge you, but they will also protect you. For now, like I said, the 200,000, it's a drop in the bucket. They may charge you more down the road, but I would strongly recommend looking at other alternatives, other operating systems, other programmers even. In cities where they do have Linux as a primary operating system, they've got dedicated people so that if something breaks down, they can call somebody in the middle of the night and boom, they're right there. All right? I can prepare a report like that, or I can talk to you later if you like about that as well. I don't know enough about this specific situation. I don't barely know anything about the IT here in Allentown to make an educated guess otherwise. I hope to do that in the near future. Wow, that was 3 minutes was quick. But long story short, my suggestion is to pay this, but start looking for other options. They're out there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah, anyone else from the public? Mr. Hahn, state your name and address, please.
I'm on 2016 East Island Street. My question is, the police, the traffic, the fire, 911, that's all gonna be connected to this and maybe moved out of the 911 area, will be moved to a countywide area. Can someone explain to that effect on this Microsoft procedure, how that how that's gonna work out when especially it moves?
Mr. Light, do you have any answer to that question?
Sure, you referring to the 911 consolidation with Lehigh County. The computers, there's 9 or 10 workstations at the comm center. We're gonna retain those because the county is purchasing new equipment, I believe, for the 911 center. So, none of that stuff is going to leave the city. It's still going to be here. And there's no impact. I mean, the licenses, we run the servers virtualized, so it's actually covered by one virtual server license. So it's not like 2 servers are going to the county and the licenses are going with it or something like that.
So there's 220 in this license, was this what you're referring to, Mr. Hunt, that covers the 911 and everything? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, that's what I'm trying to find, out. In other words, if it's moved and, are they gonna use Microsoft system? Is everything that they're gonna go, is this all gonna interface? Because that's part of the issue that kept coming up, how to get everything working smoothly, and then what, is there another charge coming in the future because there's another system?
No, I think you're misunderstanding this. This is for a blanket policy for the city. Whether we have a 911 center, 10 911 centers, it's a blanket policy, or I should say about license. Has nothing to do with the amount of people that are using it, where it's being used. It's a blanket license cost.
But
If they leave us and go to the county, it'll be under the county system. They have nothing to do with the city of Allentown.
so then we'll be automatically compatible.
No, because the county will have their own system.
Well, then why would we be?
It is a blanket. The $220,000 is a blanket price for the city of Allentown. It has nothing to do with who's going anywhere.
Well, when I had experience with Hewlett Packard at the time, they had people on site, as part of the licensing, that that was part of the deal. So if something happened or something went down, those people were in the building.
Technical support, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Are we in that category with this?
No, this is a license, just like, for instance, if you buy, years ago when you bought a computer from Dell, you got Microsoft Word, you got Excel, you got everything. I'm not a computer expert, but you got all the different programs. Now you buy a computer, you gotta buy Word separate, you gotta buy Excel separate. That's what this is about. This is a license for all those different products to combine.
That Microsoft sells.
That Microsoft sells because we're already involved with the Microsoft system.
So there'll be no personnel here.
There never is. There is no troubleshooters here. There's no technical support. In other words, if he has a problem with his phone tomorrow, he can call IT. But at 3 o'clock tonight, he can't call IT. This is not we're going way off the range
Okay,
here.
but I'm glad that that's cleared up,
Yeah.
because I was wondering how all this was gonna work when there was no bodies around.
In other words, years ago too, when you bought the computer, you got a serial, a number to type in. That would give you access to Microsoft Word. That's what this is for. This is for that serial number. Unfortunately, it's an increase, but that's because it's an updated program.
I'm just worried about
Thank you very much.
all the interfacing that has to go on.
Yeah, I understand.
That's not what you, sir.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing none. Well,
I make a motion
to
to favorably. I mean, we need it. It's a lot of money, no question. It's unfortunate, but we need it.
I'll second it. So, this will be forwarded to council. That is the end of this, that's the end of, we don't have anything else on bills or anything like that. So next on the agenda, we are going to have the, Ethics Committee. We have a review of the ethics ordinance here. Ms. Moda wanted to be a big part of this, and unfortunately, she had an emergency situation. So I think tonight, what we're going to do is we all, I think most of us here had conversations with Mr. Shipman and Mr. Trotter. And I think what we're gonna do here is we're going to try to, a possible structure for a review of the ethics code. What we're gonna try to do is, we're gonna review this, all of the things that we have on this action items for the next meeting. We're looking at different things like a list of a difference in code comparisons, create survey for review and committee, staff with volunteers, we're gonna have volunteers for that. Identify weaknesses in ethics codes, staff with volunteers for that. We also spoke about identifying some speakers to be invited to a special meeting, not for any decision-making, just information only. We are going to review that and we'll review all the survey for the next meeting. So I think for this meeting, that's what, are we all in agreement with that? Is everybody fine with that?
Yes, and I agree with what Ms. Alpha is saying. But the best thing is we already have an ethics ordinance. So this is more so tuning it up. Maybe add something, take something away, someone else's ideas might be a little better than ours. Include that. So
if there's anybody here that would like to be a staff volunteer to review a lot of this stuff with us, and please, Ms.
Good enough. Thank you.